Tonight we'll talk about both the law and the promise. I'll talk about the promise for a little while so you don't have to worry, because I know that a lot of people tell us we have to do this, that, and the other thing, or else, well, you forget it. God planned everything to happen the way it did and the way it will end. Giving you the kingdom is something your Father really wants to do. You didn't work for it. You didn't deserve it. It's not a reward. It's just a gift, so you can't lose it. Not a single person can take this gift away from you or give it to you again. Don't let anyone scare you. It's yours, and it will arrive on time. And the gift is none other than God Himself. The kingdom is not a realm, so when He gives you it, He also gives you Himself. The kingdom is a person, it's a body, and it's a beautiful body. That body makes everything around you beautiful, no matter where you are. If you were in the petrified forest, it would spring back to life no matter where you went. If you were in the desert, it would just bloom like a rose. If you were with all the broken people in society, they would all get along. If you went into a world where they were blind, lame, came to a stop, or shriveled, eyes that were missing would appear out of nowhere and fill the holes. Everything will be right because you are here, even the arms and feet that are missing. That is God's gift, which is His own body. You'll have that body one day, so put all of your hope in the kindness that is coming to you through the revealing of Jesus Christ in you. That is God and His Son coming to life in you. It is wise to bear the weight of this long, dark night of time because of this hope. Paul said, "I think the sufferings we are going through now are not worth comparing to the glory that will be revealed in us." He told us that His kindness makes us right with Him. So, in the Bible, justification means divine forgiveness. You have never been found guilty of anything. You have been found not guilty. So when it says, "Those whom He foreknew, He also chose ahead of time to be like His Son," He also called those He knew would be chosen. And He also justified those He called. And those whom He justified, He also glorified. Which means that justification is just God clearing you, and glory is God giving you something good. The man then grows up when he has his own children. That's why we say it's the Father's pleasure to give us the kingdom. He gives us Himself when He gives us the kingdom. Man is our Father because He gave us Himself. Don't let anyone worry you or make you feel like you need to do something to earn it. You can't earn the kingdom or this gift. This is an unfair gift that you don't deserve. If you deserve it, it's not a gift. It's not a prize. God makes you fit for the kingdom. Being fit for the kingdom is the result of His gift, not the condition of it. You are ready for the kingdom and wear the body of God the minute He gives you Himself. When you wear it, everything around you is made perfect. But since God made the promise comes first in the Bible. Then we are told that He gave us the law, which will protect us as visitors as we walk through So there is a law. Every man, even the smartest ones, doesn't know what the law says. Let me go back to 1949. I spoke about the Bible at a number of events in Milwaukee. These two people, he was a scientist and Alice Chaz's head physicist. They are a very large company that makes these turbines, which are sometimes bigger than this room. He was in charge of the chemical department, which was where people from all over the world who bought the turbine would send their water. He would then analyze the water to figure out what the problem was, since the chemicals were picked up by the water as it flowed through the stream and then settled inside the turbine. So they would send him samples of the water. He would then look at the water, figure out what was wrong, and send them the answer. He didn't disagree with me because he was a trained chemist and the head of the department, but he did say, "Neville, I can't quite go along with you because, as a trained chemist, it goes against what I've been taught. You say that I can go forward in time, and that you can go backward in time. You also say that everything is what it is right now, but you also say that you can change things. And it goes against what I've been taught. He said, "We know a law, and we call it entropy. Because of entropy, the past is set in stone and can't be changed. It can't be changed. Everything is out of whack if that could be changed. In my lab, I need to know that the past can't be changed, like when you braid a woman's hair. What's fixed is the braided part. What's not fixed yet is the new braided part. Since the braided part is set and can't be changed, we are waiting to see how it will grow from there. You say it's not true, that the whole world lives now, in the past, in the present, and in the future, and that you can go into these different times and find a world that is finished. I don't agree with that. That's all right at all. I'm not a chemist or a scientist, so I can't disagree with you. I only know what my dreams mean, and I teach vision based on what I have seen. I've been to these places and the past is still there, just like you said. But I'm sure that the past could be changed by going back and looking at it again. I also know that I can go into the future and plan for something to happen as I walk across a bridge. When I get to the point in time where I crossed over, it has the color, tone, and reality that I thought it was when I crossed over. It's not possible. But he was a very honest person, as are most of these guys. They learn to be honest because they know that they can't do well in science if they aren't truly honest with themselves. Anyway, I got a letter from him in November, and it was the October 15th issue of the Science magazine. Professor Richard Feynman wrote it, and it was all about the positron. At that time, he taught physics at Cornell University. After 20 years, they gave him the Nobel Prize in Physics just last year for that work. It took them 20 years to figure out that what he said in 1949 was theory. And this is the quote, "The positron is an electron that is going the wrong way." In every way, it's the wrong way. Time goes backwards. It goes from somewhere it hasn't been to somewhere else very quickly. When it gets there, it gets hit so hard that its sense of time is turned around, and it goes back to where it hasn't been. That's Professor Feynman, not Neville. He won the Nobel Prize last year for that. He said that it's not only backward in that way, but also that its charge is backward. There is an electron there, but it is a positron, which means it is neither positive nor negative. It was something they saw for the first time and didn't want to accept at first. But scientifically, it made sense with Einstein's theory, so they had to accept it in some way. But no one had ever taken a picture of it. Then someone took a picture of it while studying cosmic rays, and there it was. The real positron. He said that it wasn't said that the positron coming back should be deflected if it gets hit and continue on its path. It looked like two were created at some point, but if it gets hit so hard, it doesn't deflect. It flips over and goes forward normally to a place it hasn't been. I told him I was at home and would go into a certain time, like this year. It's only April now. I became Christmas. It looks like the shops are all set up for Christmas. Everything that sounds like Christmas music could be heard. In New York City, I'd walk through Saks Fifth Avenue into Best and into the other store, and I'd feel all of those things. It would feel real to me that it's Christmas and the month of Christmas. After I feel like Christmas is over, I'll know that things are the way I want them to be. Let's go back to a month that wasn't Christmas, like March or July. Pick a very hot day in July. I feel like it's cold outside, there's snow on the ground, and everything is set up for Christmas. When I wake up, I'd scare myself because it seemed so real. I thought to myself, are you kidding yourself? When I woke up in July and saw how hot it was. Not at all. When I went forward in time, as I usually do to wait out the days and months until December, things happened the way I thought they would. I moved forward and knew ahead of time what would happen. Well, he sent this to me with a sweet letter that said, "Neville, I must admit I didn't see it. No one did until Professor Feynman found this in his lab. Then he found it through theory, and now you say you know it through vision. Even though you're not a scientist, I couldn't believe everything you told me." In fact, I still find it hard to believe. This paper was written by the great professor, who is a theoretical physicist. He won the Nobel Prize last year for that. He worked on both the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb. Afterwards, he asked the government to release him from the privacy restrictions placed on him by his job. He then came to Caltech and taught theoretical physics there. He said, "I want the freedom to imagine. I don't want to be locked up in government secrets that keep me from speaking my mind. Leave me alone, all in theory," he says, all in theory. So he keeps working on his math and theory without thinking, coming up with these concepts. Well, mine isn't theory. I go through these states. Now try this way of looking at it. Picture the whole world as a set of infinite states. Those who say they are all states are wrong. If you are immortal, you are not a state, you are immortal. When you go into a state, that state comes to life. That is why you are not responsible if you enter a state by accident and find it to be a terrible state. Man, they judge you because they don't know, and you are in a state. You have to say what that state means, though. A person has to actually be poor in order to become poor. If you want to stay in it, you have to drink that all the way to the bottom of the cup. You will drink it all the way to the bottom if you get into any state and stay there. If you know you're in a state, you don't have to stay there. If you don't know it's a state, you see yourself as it and believe you are in it. Man has connected himself to this small body and believes that he is it. So one day, he has to throw it away because it's worn out, and he does. It breaks their hearts to think that he has died. He is eternal, but he dressed in flesh and blood, so he can't die. There is only one being that goes into states and stays in a state. The state has to be spoken by the one who brought it back to life, because I am the state's return and life, from other people to stand on his own. So after a month, he saw this man while walking his dog. The man crossed the street and came over to him. He asked, "Are you sure you remember me?" She replied, "Yes, I do." "I remember you asking me for money about a month ago," he said. "Yes, and I want to thank you for not giving it to me." He then put out his hand to my friend. "I would have asked you for money today if you had given it to me," he said. "I was so ashamed and mad at myself for putting myself in that situation because you didn't give it to me." The next day, I went out and got a good job. This job is great because it pays well and has room for growth. I'm happy there. Again, I want to thank you for not giving me the money. He helped the man stand on his own by making him look like he had a job. Those are the states I mean when I say they're all states. He moved him from one state to another. The same man is in the new state. You are ageless. You only change when you enter a state. People who knew you well in a previous state wonder, what happened to him? It's either up or down. If they notice a big change and think, what happened to him? He is wealthy, he is this, he is that. Or what happened to him? He was that way before, and now look at him. And the immortal being who lives in the state hasn't changed at all. He changed the place. When you look at the state instead of the person, you blame the state because you don't know any better. Because he knows they're just states, God forgives and makes right with everyone. And the Lord made all of these states. These are the states. That's what Blake meant when he said, "I do not consider either the just or the wicked to be in a supreme state. I consider them all to be states of sleep, into which the soul may fall in its deadly dreams of good and evil." Blake said this after leaving paradise and following the snake. When people left the state of ignorance in heaven and entered the world of experience, they followed the snake. They entered a world of learning through darkness and experience. Because here we are, making more of these clothes to dress the innocent one who has come down. So the story goes from being innocent to having an excited imagination. That's the divine body, Jesus, when the mind is fully awake. That's God. It takes this whole trip. We are the pilgrims going from one state to the next, so learn how to move from one state to another. You've never been the state, and you never will be. If you're going to blame someone, blame the government. But why do something bad? Get out of one state and into another. Leave them alone when they say it can't be done. They'll say it's not possible. You take care of your dad's business by moving from state to state whenever you want. Now, it all starts with being hungry. For it to work, you have to really want it. All of these endless states are just ways for guys to fill their hunger. You want to be good in the way that you think good people are. You know what it means to be rich. You want to be famous in the way you see it. These are all states. Get into the state before you're ready. Stay in the state after you get there. The state has everything it needs to project itself onto the outside world, but you are the one in charge. You have to live in the state. Let me stay in it while I go into it. As soon as I come back, like the positron, I will be turned around. No, I'm not going to be distracted. I'm going to keep going in the same way. Everyone is shocked when I go into a state where it seems so real. It's back here when I open my eyes, but the shock changes my mind from going back to moving forward. I'm no longer a positron because I'm an electron. When I started going back in time, I was a positron. When I get to this body, it jumps when I open my eyes. That's when I know I'm crossing a bridge of event. Now, a chain of events brought me to the point of satisfaction in what people call reality, but it was real to me when I was picturing it. That's when it really happened. We are in these bodies, but we really live in our minds. In our minds, these are the only things that are real. Thoughts are God. That is the body of God, which is Jesus. I used to do nothing but try it in my living room. From the phone in the hallway, I couldn't see the chair in the living room where I was sitting. Inside my mind, I would be on the phone while my body was in the living room. I would then guess that I am on the phone. I couldn't see that person with my own eyes, but all of a sudden, I would feel myself back on the chair. It was a huge shock. After that, I would get up from the chair and call again. From the outside, the house would look like this building. Do not look at it from this spot, but from the street. Also, pretend that I am standing outside the building while I look at it. At that moment, you find yourself outside and viewing it from the outside. Do it in your own home or with something in your room, and it will make you feel like you want to move. You sort of become flexible, and it's easy to be in any state after that. They're just states. It's only a state when someone thinks they are so important. Okay, that's fine. That state is important to them, and anyone who lives there must do exactly what they would do. Because it's a state. I would do what Hitler did if I were there. And I have to play that part if I fall into it, whether I know it or not. So he doesn't think of the good or the bad as being in a higher state. Instead, he sees them as all being in the same kind of sleep that the soul falls into when it leaves paradise to follow the snake. That generational snake. You can be anything you want here if you know that these are all just states. In the end, you are found not guilty. You are totally freed. You are cleared, divinely acquitted. Don't let anyone scare you about what you need to do to get the kingdom. The kingdom is not something you deserve. Your Father wants to give it to you, and you didn't deserve it. It's not a prize for anything good you did. Whenever you're in a good mood, remember that it's just the mood you're in that makes you happy. Living in my world is easy for me when I'm in a good state. I enjoy being nice more than being mean. If I say something mean, it hurts me more than the person who hears it. A mean comment hurts me more than the person I said it to. Because of that, I like being in that state. But in the end, you will fully awaken with the gift, which is God Himself. In this world, there is nothing but God. Someone called me and asked what I thought about demons. She went down to this Christian Science practitioner who now thinks that demons are following her around. Well, they teach about devils and how the devil does this and that, But that's not the first and greatest commandment. The first and greatest commandment is the Shema, which is the Hebrew confession of faith. Hear, O God, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. As soon as you move away from that, you have a devil. There's another something, another God, or another author. And if you have two, you'll have 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on. It's important to remember that there is only one God, and that God is your own wonderful mind. That's God when you say, I am. There isn't and never will be another God. He will reveal himself to you and fully awaken. When he does, you will be God. After that, you'll be dressed in that shirt from heaven. And I'm telling you, it's a dress from heaven. I can't explain it other than to say that when you're in it, you're not on the ground, you're lifted up. And the only way I can explain it is as fire and air. And when you float by in the sea of flawed people, you don't do a thing to change them. No compassion, because they can't stay that way. Everyone is made perfect when you go by and glide by. No one is left out. What he did to lose his eyes, arm, legs, and mouth doesn't matter. What he did doesn't matter. When you're around, he can't stay flawed. You make everyone perfect. That's the kingdom. That's why your Father is happy to give you the kingdom. Put all of your hope in this gift, and then you'll be able to handle the short-term problems in the world. We will get through them. And we're not always aware of these states. We can accidentally slip into a state when we read the newspaper, hear the news, or have a short chat with a friend. The state doesn't care, though. You brought it to life when you walked into it because you are the only power in the world that can bring things back to life. The power that brings life back to the world is you, and that power is your own wonderful mind. Put your minds at ease, everyone. Don't think for a second that just because you're good in the ways that the world defines it, by going to certain events, doing certain things, and noticing certain things, that someone or something is watching you and making notes about little things that will help you. No, you're just waiting for the right time for him to show himself to you. So you put all of your faith in the kindness that is coming to you when Jesus Christ, who is both the Lord and his Son, shows up inside you. Who is that? Jesus Christ, the Lord and his Christ. Christ is God's Son. Someone else must be filled with the Holy Spirit to say that Jesus is Lord. The Holy Spirit is the remembered one. He does bring about that remembering, but not until the Son comes. You will remember who the Lord is because you know who his Son is when the Son comes back. You wear this little thing until you take it off, which will be a few more years. After that, you are not in this world at all. Because you are perfect, you are in a different world where everything is perfect. You choose when you want someone to see you. They don't come looking for you and find you. Let me tell you a story. She doesn't come here anymore, and the city might not have her. On the other hand, she told me one night, you know, I found myself asleep. When I asked the people around me, do you know of Neville? I was very, very aware. They said yes. Who is he? She asked. She then said, I was whirled around like a meteor flying through space. I was thrown out, and I woke up scared to death. Someone who is born from above won't show himself until he wants to. He must show himself to you. You don't look for him because you can't get into the kingdom unless you are born from above. It is his pleasure to give you the kingdom, but it will come from above after you are born. He can't give you the kingdom before that birth. While someone who has already been given the kingdom is in the world, they are only there for a short time to tell the story. They are telling it from experience, not from theory. I'm going to tell you the truth about what happened to me. I'm telling you about it because it will happen to all of you. No one should try to persuade you that you need to be a little better than you are to get the kingdom. You have been given the kingdom. And listen to what Romans 11:11 says, the gift and the call of God are irrevocable. This means that you or anyone else cannot take it back, and your gift is more than just God. We learn in Romans 4:6 that you will receive the whole world. Everything in the world is yours. There is no small part of the world that you inherit. You inherit God, and God owns the whole world, and the world is yours to keep. David is told in the 16th Psalm, "The portion of my inheritance is the Lord." That's his share. The Lord is his property. The son takes over from the father. In this way, a man grows up when he has his own children. This is the big secret of the Bible, and you will receive the Father because that is his will and no one can change it. It makes your Father happy to give it to you. If someone tells you that one is better than the other, don't believe them. They are rating the states. That man is wealthier than the other man because he lives in a wealthier state. But the person who lives in the rich state is the same as the person who lives in the poor state. And the person in jail tonight, who is from the state, is the same as the judge who punished him. God doesn't see a difference between them. When it comes to God, everyone is free. That's a good reason. His kindness makes us right with him. We are told that his kindness makes everyone right with God. And grace is a gift from God that we don't deserve. It is God's last and final gift, and it is love in action. God is love too. It's his gift to us. Then he gives you himself. I have nothing else to give. He gave you himself, and now the whole world is yours. So the land is ours. I hope you start practicing tonight. You can try it right away. It works great and doesn't cost anything. If you want to feel wealthy, you can either stay here tonight or go home. What's wrong with that? In fact, there was a very bad economic downturn in the 1920s and 1930s, beginning in 1929. Also, did you know that you could buy 8 beautiful glasses at Tiffany as a wedding present? How much did it cost? Not more than $75. It was a beautiful glass in a Tiffany box. The whole thing was in a Tiffany box. If you went to Macy's or Gimbel's, you could get something different for $1 or $2.25. But most people would not be caught dead in Tiffany. Style, that was something they didn't have. They were too embarrassed to walk in, so they wouldn't even try. You could still go into Tiffany. The gems are on the basement level. Take the elevator to the 3rd floor, where the beautiful china and glasses were kept, and get a lovely package from Tiffany that has been gift-wrapped. 8 was enough. You didn't need to send 20. 8 pretty cups, but no one would go in. It made them feel bad to be seen in Tiffany. I'm pretty sure their branch here is the same way. And if you go to Tiffany, you can get something beautiful for not much money. But people are taught that it's important and stylish. You can't talk them out of it once you're in one place. Before you can go into a state, you have to leave that state. In the past, a $12 suit was the most you could buy, and you thought that would always be the case. Leave that comment behind and choose something else. Then you buy a suit for $250, which is more than the $12 you could get for the other suit. It happened to me, too. It was easier for me to pay $250 for a suit than to pay $12 for one that I had to run out of in the rain. That's life. And all you do is move from one state to another. And the same being, I'm not a different being. I go by the same name. I answer, Neville, you say. I then replied to the name Neville. Still, I move from one place to another. You can do things that were hard for you in one state that are now straightforward in another. A long time ago, I was in a state where I couldn't smoke, drink, have sex, eat meat, fish, or poultry. I didn't do anything really. The next morning, my friend Abdullah told me, "You will have died by the time you get back from Barbados." I told him I would die. "You will have died," he said. "I don't mean that you will be buried in Barbados or at sea and then have died. You'll do all the things you haven't done in 7 years before you get back," he said. It was true. I don't know how it happened either. It just happened, so I can't say how it happened. I stayed with my mom in Barbados for 3 months and lived the same way I did in New York City. In 10 days, I did everything I hadn't done in 7 years on my trip north. There's no way I can explain it. When I moved from one state to another, it felt acceptable to do the things I did at sea that I didn't do for 7 years. I'm telling you that they are only states of mind. That being said, you can forgive every being in the world, no matter what they are, what they want to be, or what they have done, because they will be right in the end. We are told that God's kindness makes him righteous. God's kindness makes everyone right with him. He is divinely found not guilty. Who is going to judge him when God clears him? For justification comes first, then glory. So he starts with those he knew ahead of time. He knew us before the world was even made because he picked us in him. If he picked me in him before the world was made, then he knew who I was. Those he knew ahead of time, he also chose to be born. He planned for them to be like his Son, who is the exact reflection of his glory and glory. That's what I'm meant to be, the exact reflection of him. And then he called those who he already knew would be chosen. Call my boys from far away and my girls from all over the world. Get them all. He is calling each of us one by one. He calls us one at a time because we are all so different. He can't call us in groups. And he also justified those he called, and he also praised those who he had justified. Because of this, you are bound to be praised with God as God, and no one can stop it. So don't let anyone scare you from the world's pulpits. They try to scare people to death every Sunday morning and paint themselves as the ideal of what people should be. They will say, "Look at me and follow me." Yesterday, I read about this son of a famous preacher who works all over the country. Many places in the West Indies and Europe can be found by him. I got 3 letters from someone in Denmark asking what I think of them. I didn't answer, though. I replied to his first 2 letters, but I didn't answer when he tried to turn this into a chat and brought up his party. I didn't pay attention to the man. I have never read any of his books. Well, you know what he means. Yesterday I saw a picture in the paper of his son admitting that he had sinned against his wife and kids. After that, he did something bad to God. Then I read that this man gets tithes worth $30 million a year. He tells them that sending him money is like serving God, and they do. He gets $30 million without paying any taxes on it. It's about religion. $30 million. This means that the son is no longer the winner. Even though the dad is 80 years old, he still gets to keep that $30 million a year without having to pay fees. What does he talk about? That's a big deal. That much money is big business. And there is no faith at all in your mind. You can mess up the best book ever by reading it as something that is happening in this modern world. It's not at all secular. This story is very deep. We can say it's all spiritual. It's God's plan to save us. The modern world has nothing to do with it. They are telling you about the future of the United States, Russia, and China. It's not in the Bible.